All right, kids, we're on the back side of day 7 notes, and you guys can see that our unit circle has been blown up so that we can talk about what's going on in it. But notice on the unit circle, we have all these coordinates. All right, so we have all these points. All points on a graph have coordinates, all right, and they want all the values of our coordinates in exact value form of all these points on our unit circle. Okay, so we can start off with a couple. We know that this point over here has coordinates of 1, 0. The coordinates of this point over here would be negative 1, 0. The coordinates of this point up here are 0, 1. And the coordinates of this point down here would be 0, negative 1. Okay. We know that traveling around our unit circle, we have 0 degrees, 90, 180, 270, 360. If we go backwards around our unit circle, okay, this would be negative 90 degrees, negative 180 degrees, negative 270 degrees, and negative 360 degrees. Okay. We also know that in radians, that this is 180 degrees is also known as pi radians. That 90 would be pi over 2 radians. That 270 is 3 pi over 2 radians. And that 360 is 2 pi radians. Okay, and so you can see as we travel around our unit circle, from 0 degrees going up just a little bit, we hit 30 degrees, a little bit more 45 degrees, a little bit more 60 degrees, a little bit more 90 degrees. Okay, so we'll take care of these ones first, but you'll notice that they want the coordinates of those 3 points on the unit circle. Okay, and so what we're going to do is we're going to realize that if our angle here is 30 degrees, that we're looking at this triangle here. All right, and our little triangle should fit exactly in there from the other side. And that in our, when we put that 30-degree angle in here, closest to the origin, all right, that across from the 30 is our side of 1/2, and that the adjacent side to the 30 is the square root of 3 over 2, and that the hypotenuse is 1 since we're on the unit circle. Okay, so in order to get the coordinates for the 30-degree angle and this point over here, we would have to go to the right, square root of 3 over 2, so that's our x coordinate, and up 1/2, and so that's our y coordinate. And there's the coordinates of the point on the unit circle when we have a 30-degree angle. All right. The cool thing is, if we have our exact values memorized, all we have to do to get those coordinates is to type in the cosine of 30 degrees, comma sine of 30 degrees. And we can get those exact values without having to use those right triangles. All right. So again, coming up here, all we're going to do is type in the cosine of 45 degrees, comma the sine of 45 degrees. And you're going to realize they both come out to be 0.707. And so the x coordinate is the square root of 2 over 2, and the y coordinate is the square root of 2 over 2. Okay. Next up, this is 60 degrees. So we're going to go ahead and type in the cosine of 60 degrees to get the x coordinate, and the sine of 60 degrees to get the y coordinate. Okay. Cosine of 60 comes out to be 0.5, which is 1/2. And sine of 60 comes out to be 0.866, which is the square root of 3 over 2. Okay. And we could do the same thing for the 90 degrees. We could type in cosine of 90, comma sine of 90, and that would come out to be 0, 1, except we already know that information without having to use our calculator. Okay. All right, guys, this is where reference angles are going to come into place, okay? So this right here is 30 degrees, just like this is 30 degrees, all right? But you're in quadrant 2, so you're coming up from the x-axis, and so we have to do 180 degrees minus 30, which is 150 degrees, okay? This up here would be coming up 45 degrees from your x-axis, and so 180 minus 45 would give us this angle of 135 degrees. This angle here is coming up 60 degrees, so 180 minus 60 would put us at 120 degrees. And now we should be able to go ahead and find the coordinates of these points, these 3 points in quadrant 2, just like we did it in quadrant 1. All right. And there might be something that you guys recognize that will make the rest of these a little bit easier too. All right. So we're going to go ahead and type in cosine of 150 to get the x coordinate, comma sine of 150 to get the y coordinate. All right. And when we do that, we end up with negative 0.866, which is negative square root of 3 over 2. And when we type in sine of 150, it comes out to be 0.5, which is 1/2. And so what I need you guys to realize is that these coordinates here are these coordinates over here, except because we're in quadrant 2, the x coordinate is negative. So if you guys can just remember that, all we have to do is copy over our coordinates, or we could type them in. It's completely up to you, whichever process you want. Okay. So if I'm looking for this next set of coordinates, I'm going to go ahead and steal these ones and put them right here. Except you have to remember you're in quadrant 2, and so the x coordinate is negative. So we'll say negative square root of 2 over 2. Positive square root of 2 over 2. Okay. If we would like these coordinates here, we're going to steal them from over here. Okay. It's just that we have to make our x coordinate negative, and so we end up with negative 1/2, comma, square root of 3 over 2. All right, and again, you can check them. If you type in cosine of 120 and you type in sine of 120, those should match. All right, and again, that makes sense. Remember, all are positive here. Sine is positive here, but cosine is negative. So which is why our cosine theta, our x-coordinate, are all negative, and that our sine theta, our y-coordinates, are all positive. All right? All right, coming down here, guys, down into quadrant 3. Just realize, guys, that this is 30 degrees down from your x-axis, and so in order to get this angle, we have 180 plus 30. Okay? 180 plus 30 would give us a 210 degree angle. Here would be 180 plus 45, which is 225. And then this will be 180 plus 60, which is 240. All right. So again, guys, we're going to go ahead and steal our coordinates. Okay. So if we want to, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to use my highlighter. Okay, and highlight this in yellow and look at all the other ones that we already done in yellow, and just realize because we're down here in quadrant 3, x coordinate and y coordinate are both going to be negative. And so now we can go ahead and fill in negative square root of 3 over 2, comma, negative 1/2. Okay. We'll go ahead and highlight our next one in blue. It goes with all the other 45 degree reference angles. And just remember that both x and y are going to be negative. So this will be negative square root of 2 over 2, comma, negative square root of 2 over 2. Or we could also type it in if we wanted to type in cosine of 225, comma, sine 225. It should give us those decimal values, and we just have to remember that those are the fractions that they're equal to. All right, next one up. We'll highlight this one in red, just like all the other 60 degree reference angles are highlighted in red. And we're going to steal their coordinates, or we could type them in, right? Just remember that they should both be negative down here. So negative 1/2, comma, negative square root of 3 over 2. All right. And we got one more quadrant to do. And so we'll go back. And remember that this down here is 30 degrees from your x-axis. Okay? And so we're coming from 360 degrees on our x-axis, and we're going to subtract 30, and we end up with 330 degree angle. Okay, here will be 360 minus 45, And that's going to give us 315 degree angle. And 360 minus 60 will give us a 300 degree angle. Okay. And so we'll go ahead and highlight our 30 degree reference angle in yellow, like the rest of them. And just remember that in quadrant 4, okay, cosine is positive and sine is negative. All right. And so square root of 3 over 2 will be positive, and our y-coordinate will be negative. Okay, let's take a look at our next one, the 45 degree reference angles. And again, just remember when you're writing your coordinates for quadrant 4, x-coordinate or your cosine theta is positive, and that our y-coordinate this time is negative. Okay, and last one, we'll highlight that in red, just like all the other reference angles for 60 degrees are, and so we can steal their coordinates without having to type them into our calculator. Just remember the first coordinate is positive in quadrant 4, and the second coordinate is negative. And there it is. There is the exact value of coordinates on the unit circle. All right, those are the only angles that we use that have exact values for their coordinates. All the other ones we use decimal approximations for. Okay. All right, so we'll come down here and we'll do some questions. It says using the unit circle diagram, determine each of the following values. And so the first one up is sine of pi over 6. So with this one, we have a couple options. All right. Pi over 6 is our angle, and that is not in degrees. You guys can see that they don't have a degree symbol after the number, like in part B. And so this is in radians. So we could do one of two things. We could switch our calculator's mode to radians and then type it in. Okay. Or we can convert by hand. So it's up to you. All right. Because they're already converted up top, that just might save us some time, okay? So coming up here, if we look for pi over 6, okay, you guys can see pi over 6 is right here. And that pi over 6 is the same thing as 30 degrees if we were to convert it. All right, so we'll jump back down here, and we'll go ahead and rewrite this as sine of 30 degrees, okay? And if we type in sine of 30 degrees into our calculator, we're going to end up with 1/2. And there's the exact value. Okay. If we type in tangent of 90 into our calculator, it's going to come out to equal an error, undefined. All right. And the reason for tangent of 90, remember tangent is known as sine theta. So sine of 90 divided by cosine theta, which is cosine of 90. Okay. And at 90 degrees, sine theta is 1, and at cosine of 90 is 0. Okay. And that's why this is coming out to be undefined. Can't divide by 0. Okay. All right, sine of 135 in our calculator, guys, is 0.707, which is the square root of 2 over 2. Okay. Part D, we could either do one of two things. We could change our mode to radians and type this in just as we see it, or we can convert 5 pi over 6 to degrees. Okay. Or we could use our cheat sheet up here since we already have 5 pi over 6. We just have to find it, and there it is, okay? So 5 pi over 6 is 150 degrees. So if we rewrite this, we could have our calculator stay in degree mode and type in tangent of 150. Okay. And that's going to come out to be negative 0.577, which, if you remember from the other side, is one of those memorized decimals. Not one that we have to pay attention to this year, but that is what that is. Okay. All right, cosine of 225, we could type that right in our calculator, and we're going to end up with negative 0.707, which is negative square root of 2 over 2. All right. And same thing with F, we could either change 5 pi over 3 into degrees, since it's in radians, or we can change the mode in our calculator to radians and type it in just like we see it, or we can use our cheat sheet from up above that 5 pi over 3, if you locate it on the unit circle, where's 5 pi over 3? It's 300 degrees. Okay? So we'll rewrite this as sine of 300 degrees so we can keep our calculator in degree mode. And when we type it in, it's negative 0.866, which is negative square root of 3 over 2. All right. All right, guys, we'll do some more practice on the next day. Hopefully that's starting to make some sense.